Moscow, a huge metropolis in which thousands of dogs live alongside people, unchanging and loyal companions. In winter, while working on this film, the temperature dropped to -25. In the city's stone labyrinth, the lives of thousands of stray dogs were threatened. How many of them died during these frosty days? There are no such statistics. Most of us, in our daily rush, do not notice their existence at all. Someone said that dogs are the last angels who remained with people on earth. But if people's lives becomes more comfortable and prosperous every day, then our angels end up in hell. In a real hell, not a mythical one. Life in a hostile urban environment is a dangerous, miserable existence in which the animal constantly experiences torment. Cold, hunger, pain, bullying, death under the wheels of cars, and pursuits by dog hunters are not the only dangers the dogs face on the street. At different times, the city has dealt with the problems of stray animals in different ways. By the 1980 Moscow Olympics, there was a more radical approach. All stray dogs and cats were killed. Dogs in the city. Today in Moscow, this is socially unacceptable to solve the problem of neglected animals. The city authorities have opened up 13 municipal shelters funded from the city budget, where a total of about 17,000 animals are kept. The largest one is Kozhukhovsky. About 3,000 dogs live here permanently. Smaller shelters in the west and north of the capital, where we also visited, have another 2,500 animals. All these shelters are organised based on the same principle. Natalia Bondarenko, volunteer. This is what you see on your left and right, called a sector. Sector D, this is Sector C. You see it is written on them. We have 4 of these, and they're all separated from each other. 3,000 dogs are kept in these 4 sectors. This is a kind of city too, but only for dogs. The districts here are sectors, the streets are rows, and the apartments are very small cages, in each of which there are 3 or 4 dogs. At first glance, it is clear that this city is more like a prison, where outcasts, rejected by the metropolis, are waiting for the end of their term. At the same time, there are not enough shelters, even like this imperfect one. The city budget just about covers cleaning occasionally and very poor quality food. Metal enclosures in the summer get so hot that the dogs howl. During the harsh winter, such places do not protect from frost, and the water bowls turn to ice. Dogs go out for walks here less often than prisoners in the exercise yard. Of course, the shelter workers clean, feed, give water to the animals, but their efforts are clearly not enough for such a number. Therefore, all dogs sit and wait with hope in their eyes for those special people who will give them what they need: love and warmth. Tosha is famous for his sense of smell. He can sense volunteers approaching before anyone else. Anna Kritskaya, volunteer. Tosha, Tosha, who is there? Who is there? Hello, hello everyone. Well, okay. Everyone, walk, walk. Well, he talks like that. He's very kind. We often hear that a dog is man's best friend, and we do not doubt that, but it's somehow not accepted to say that a man is a dog's best friend. Having domesticated dogs thousands of years ago, having taught them to be our true friends, we have forgotten about our moral duty to animals. Each of the thousands of dogs in the shelters has its own usual tragic story associated with the irresponsibility and indifference of human beings. New arrivals, sick, injured dogs come to the shelter every day. First of all, they are sent to the medical office, where they are examined, treated, castrated, chipped, and given the necessary vaccinations. Svetlana Koldasheva, a doctor of the Kožuchov Dog Shelter. On a typical day, there are usually scheduled surgeries, sterilisation and castration. This is probably the main treatment for stray animals. We also do many other types of surgery, removal of neoplasms, new growths, and plastic surgeries. But here, plastic surgery is not for the sake of beauty, but for the animal's welfare. Nurse. Here the skin was completely torn off, the jaw was bare. The work of vets in a shelter is not easy, requiring stress-free and unconditional love. Love and compassion for their silent patients. People with big hearts work here. They could receive more money in commercial clinics, but for doctors who work here, money is secondary. Doctor in the Kožuchov shelter. You do not think, yes, about the salary. You just do what you think is necessary and that's it. Complex medical procedures are paid for by funds from the charity foundations and volunteers. Their participation has made it possible to buy modern equipment for the shelter's medical room. There is an ultrasound machine, dental equipment, and a wide range of medicines. Dogs that come into the shelter cannot survive without the support of caring people. The shelter's workers are simply not able to take all the animals for a walk, even once a week. And this is just one of the many problems facing animals living in shelters, but a very acute one as it becomes a question of life and death for dogs locked in cramped cages. Few people who know about this problem leave their place of work, postpone their free time, in order to come to the shelter every weekend to give the involuntary prisoners the opportunity to feel alive. People of different ages, positions and professions come together to help out. I'm the head of a large company, the owner. I'm a bank employee. I'm an accountant. I'm a nurse. I'm a lawyer. They are called volunteers. The main thing they have in common is a sense of personal responsibility towards the lives of other beings. Yekaterina Zubenko, volunteer. I spend 4 to 5 hours a week in the shelter. If I don't come, animals will not come out of their cages. It was one of my main motivations when I realised that it was literally a prison for them. 3 to 4 dogs are kept in one cage. Some of them never leave the cage. Yana Usinka, volunteer. Well, if I don't come on Sunday, someone will screw up for sure. The wrong dogs will be released, they will forget to take someone somewhere. Despite the fact that things will still get done, it's still on my mind. Marina Kashirska, volunteer. We buy canned food all the time to feed them, to please them. It's not so much about feeding as its nutritional value. Yes, but they are really looking forward to this moment because they are mostly on dry food. And when volunteers come with canned food, it's a real feast for the dogs. Oh, how delicious. Yes, yes. Yes, here. How delicious. Yes. Well done. Well done. Feeding dogs with a spoon is not an attraction for a film crew, but a necessity. Volunteers feed their wards in such a way so they do not fight over the food, and everyone gets the same amount. Dogs were not used to this before, but they learn fast when they feel that a person has come to them with an open heart. Another important task of the volunteer at the shelter is the socialization of animals. They must restore the dog's trust in people, teach them to communicate, play, and walk on a leash in the city. And kindness, as it should, works wonders. Olga Radionova, volunteer. The most important thing, as we call it, is to put the dog on a leash. I was supervising a big dog. His name was Baron. I probably sat like this in the doghouse with him probably for 6 months, if not more. I just sat in the dog's cage right on the floor, in these work clothes, yes, special ones, and just thumbed through the internet. He smelled me from behind. I held out some treats which he didn't take at first. Then he took them, then he got closer, lay down, then next to me. Finally, he let me pet him. Then I calmly put on a harness, and we first carried him out into the administrative territory in our hands because he was huge, about 40 kilos. And we just dragged him through the snow with our hands like a stone, so that he understood that he had to get up and go. Well, in the end, we found a family for him. The dog went to Canada. Over time, even the most wild and intimidated dogs allow themselves to be friends with a person. That's why even children are allowed to play and communicate with dogs. Dogs are very happy with such a partnership, and for some children this communication plays the role of zoo therapy. That's what parents expect when they bring their kids here at weekends, instead of taking them to traditional children's entertainment centres. He was afraid of dogs, and Hassan was afraid of children. And now they are together, friends. Well, first of all, Hassan is kind, true. He forgot me a little, okay, no problem. He will soon remember me. We all want our children to grow up humane and kind to each other, to love nature and all living things. But for this, we ourselves need to stop treating animals as things. Anna Karitska, volunteer. Julka, give me a paw, a paw. Show how you give me a paw. You are my clever girl. She has a terrible story. She was found tied up in the cemetery. She'd sat there for 3 days crying, was so skinny. As soon as she got rescued, she became all fluffy. She got here, stuck her head out of the doghouse and almost hanged herself. Rescuers had to cut the twigs to save her. She can't live in a closed space, and that's why she lives here, in a separate room with us. Most of the dogs come to the shelter from the city streets. Among them are those who are born in a litter and those who live with people while people needed them. Darya Kutisheva, volunteer. This is Amurchik, the most giant dog in the entire history of the shelter. Amurchik is about 80 kilograms of pure joy. He came to us after being caught, like all dogs. He bonded with the metro workers, lived with them, but when it was time for the workers to go to their regions, he had to be caught and brought to the shelter because people would be afraid of such a big homeless dog living on the street. People could react the wrong way, hit, kick, or even poison the dog. We've got dog hunters on the streets. The streets are always more dangerous than a shelter like this. Yelena Ivanova, animals rights activist. If, at our official level, the regulation of the number of stray animals was carried out by means of murdering them and not in a humane way, but the most primitive and cruel way, and whole generations grew up on this. If it is possible for officials to behave like this, then what hope is there for children, adolescents, young people who have witnessed this? Therefore, we have this phenomenon, dog hunters in different shapes and sizes, who operate for the sake of cruelty. They get hooked on cruelty. This is a personality flaw, and it does not distinguish today an animal, tomorrow it could be a human. Animals are threatened not only by dog hunters, but also by the moral insufficiency of people, their irresponsibility. After all, even the presence of an owner and a roof does not guarantee a dog a happy life. Some animals have to be rescued from people. Some people, without hesitation, kick out their four-legged friends at the slightest inconvenience. Kurt was beaten by his owner. The neighbour couldn't stand it anymore and brought him to the shelter. Jackie Sheriff was thrown out by the owners, tied to a tree in the park. Gzhel, a kind, loving and active dog, happened to be unwanted in the new house. Sever got lost, but no one was looking for him, and now such a loving dog has to spend his life in a tiny cage. Natalia Bondarenko, volunteer. Yes, there are refuseniks. These are the most troubled dogs. They end up in the shelter knowing that a person has abandoned them. The dog, for example, lived at home and the person betrayed him. The dog begins to experience what is called severe depression. Yelena Ivanova, animals rights activist. Our society is split into two unequal groups. Some can't turn away, close their eyes and walk by. As the Chinese say, your closed eyes will not make the other person's misfortune smaller. Others throw away without looking back. If you throw away litter, you'll be fined. But you can throw away a living, intelligent creature as much as you want and won't get punished for it. The volunteers represent the part of society that cannot pass by. In Latin, this means volunteer. These people voluntarily spend their personal time and money. They give care, love, and warmth to the animals that become unwanted, superfluous. They've been betrayed by people. And while the laws do not work, the compassion and mercy of the volunteers do. Volunteer is a masculine word, but in fact it turns out that this is a more feminine business. Of course, men also come to help, but they are outnumbered by women. Olga Radionova, volunteer. Women are more devoted to motherhood. They are hungry for hugs, warmth, affection. For me, animals are children. Every look of a dog, I see my face, my soul. Men's behavior is different.
Мужчина немножко по-другому, наверное. Мы-то сюсюкаемся. Я от наших мужчин этого не вижу.
It is known that the so-called social hormone, oxytocin, is responsible for the emotions of people. Oxytocin is produced by lovers and mothers, absorbed in caring for children. Recent research by scientists has shown that when a person communicates with a dog, oxytocin is released in the same way as in relationships between people. Just like caring mothers, women volunteers try to spoil their wards with all sorts of treats and toys. And they also pay for all these dogs' fun out of their own pockets. What can't you do for your loved ones? And this love is returned 100-fold. Olga Radionova, volunteer. When I'm leaving, my cheeks hurt because I have a constant smile on my face all the time. Here you are, my pretty one. Ekaterina Zubenka, volunteer. There is so much love here. Everyone will be licked. The dogs will not stop wagging their tails. Galina Makarova, volunteer. Really, sometimes I just laugh at them all the time. It's impossible. When they're out for a walk and you come, it starts. This one whispers in your ear, this one licks your nose, and most importantly, on lips. I just say, don't lick me on the lips. There is nothing that women volunteers have not heard before about themselves. They are weirdos, they have nothing better to do, something is wrong in their life, something is wrong with the family, and there are problems with their children. Galina Makarova, volunteer. Who is a volunteer? I was once asked by a man, you don't have a husband? Why do you have 2 dogs? I say, why? I have a husband and 2 sons, by the way. It gives the impression that a volunteer is such an unsettled woman who goes here and there to feed the dogs. Natalia Bondarenko, volunteer. Recently I've been conducting my practice. Psychologist, systematic therapist, counsellor. I have many branches, a business coach. Ekaterina Zubenka, volunteer. I work for a large international company as a trade marketer. Most volunteers are successful people, despite society's strange attitudes towards them. They can organise not only their own lives, but also are able to harmonise the world around them. All volunteers have pets at home from the shelters. Galina has 2 adopted dogs and 3 cats at home. Galina Makarova, volunteer. This dog is Arbat. He's been living with us for 9 years. Somewhere in the area of the Red Gate there is a circular railway. His owners were passing through the railway tracks with Arbat and his paws got jammed. At that moment the train started to move. Trains in our part of the world do not stop under any circumstances. But then there were people who, someone heard him crying, someone called, looking for a service that can transport him. A team of caring people got together. He was saved. They wanted to put him to sleep in the clinic because the doctor did not understand how he would move. But who saved him said, we do not put him to sleep. He ended up in a shelter. Alexei, Galina's husband. When we took him at first, he was just a dog. Galina. I was terrified to think that such an animal would live in the shelter. I cried for 2 days and 2 nights trying to explain to Lyosha that I could not stand it, knowing about it and doing nothing about it. A disabled animal is a huge responsibility, hard physical work, and it means certain restrictions. Life, yes, has changed a little. We don't travel so often. Well, the fact is that we do not travel at all, yes. In 10 years, we've only travelled once. So what? Our joy has only increased. Let's go for a walk. Who wants to go for a walk? He moves in a wheelchair. Again, another team of caring people helped us to purchase, pay and deliver these strollers from America. And here he is in a stroller. Sometimes he runs so fast you can't catch up. He's in a car. Everyone loves him. Everyone feels sorry for him. But Lyosha and I are a little shocked. Oh, what a poor thing. Why is he a poor thing? The dog lives, walks, lives a full life. So many years in the family, with friends. Why is he a poor dog? He has an amazing smile. Unhappy dogs do not smile like that. Arbat, of course, is a lucky one. He managed to find a home. But volunteers can't take home everyone. That's why the main task that the volunteers set for themselves is to find a home for their wards. They take photos, write their stories, promote them in all social networks. And often such ads find a response in the hearts of sympathetic people. Woman at the shelter. Yes, I'm taking the doggy home. I found her through the internet on the website. I saw her and she just broke my heart. I just couldn't let that dog spend all her life in a cage, being so unhappy. So I decided to take her home and give her the best life I could. Volunteers try to find homes for small dogs right away. There is no place for big dogs in our city, but some lucky ones go abroad, oddly. But they are very much appreciated there. Natalia Bondarenko, volunteer. Well, as I say, the chances that he will find a home in Russia are zero, because he is a big shaggy boy. If only in a private house, in a dog house. We do not allow dogs to be put on a chain. This is cruel. Leonushka is getting used to the Swiss passport. Most likely she will go there. Do you have a Swiss passport? And she will. Kozhukhov shelter's favourite, Mira, also dreamed of a foreign passport. But seriously, about a loving home and a loving man. This dog can't live without a man at all. She really needs someone. She feels bad without him. She yearns for such a man. Mira is the champion of bad luck. Several times she was close to finding a home, but for various reasons it never happened. But there is always a chance of a miracle. And it happened this time. Literally, a week before filming this movie ended, Mira was finally taken to America to a loving family, and now her life has turned into a real fairy tale. Mira is in Los Angeles. We walk around the center of the city. Now let's go to a coffee shop. Yes, Mira? Let's go have some coffee. For a giant dog like Fleur, in spite of her good personality, it's very unlikely to be able to get a lucky ticket abroad. She's too big. Anna Karitska, volunteer. Her name is Fleur. She has been with us for 2 years. She loves people very much. She was brought to the shelter after being caught. I think the breeders started the process, but they probably could not cope. So she got here this way. We really hope that it will be some good people who have their own house, an open-air cage, where she will be the only dog. Yes, Fleur. Give me a paw. Good girl. To find loving owners for large adult dogs is not easy. No matter how hard the volunteers try, there will still be thousands of dogs who are destined to spend their lives behind the bars of the shelter's doghouse. The mongrels Visna and Dobby belong to this hopeless category. 10 years ago, these 2 large dogs came to the shelter, and since then, they have been living in one cramped cage. Nadezhda Cherkashina, volunteer. They are quite old dogs. They're inseparable. They are two large dogs. These dogs are very unlikely to be given a home because of their size. Volunteers have never seen such affection for each other among dogs. Dobby always defended Spring, and she would hide behind him as soon as she saw people coming. In winter, they slept in a ball, keeping each other warm. They were even taken to the medical room, together, 2 by 2, otherwise they would get very nervous and start whining. We can only guess what they've been through in their pre-shelter life, as after all these years, they haven't learned to trust anyone. Nadezhda Cherkashina, volunteer. These dogs have lost interest in life. They have nothing except each other. I mean, no tasty food. They don't have long, interesting walks. They do not have a person who would come and spend time with them. During the filming of the movie, the story of Dobby and Spring came to a tragic end. After spending all his life in the shelter, Dobby suddenly died. Went to the rainbow, as the volunteers say. Spring has stopped eating due to the grief. The chances that some kind soul will take Spring home are almost zero. Some people believe that killing animals is a more merciful way than keeping an animal behind bars their whole life. In Russia, since 2010, it has been legally prohibited to shoot animals during capture. At the end of 2018, Law 498-FZ, Responsible Way to Treat Animals, was established. According to this law, cruelty to animals, murder, which is sometimes called euthanasia, is prohibited. But at the same time, some information appears every now and then. As in Yakutsk, about 200 dogs and cats were killed in one of the shelters, and such cases are not uncommon in our country. But euthanasia, as a way of reducing the number of animals in overcrowded shelters, is also not considered humane in our country.
Категорически нет.
Olga Rodionova, volunteer. Absolutely not. We have a huge number of examples when a dog, after staying in a shelter for 2, 3, 5, 6 years, finds a family. And it would be a pity, for example, the dogs that I assign to the shelter. I would be sorry if I teach them how to socialise, walk on a leash, even in a short time, which is given there, for example 6 months, I would feed them. I know that they have a chance to find a family, 100%, even more. It just takes time. More PR is needed, I don't know. I would have lost my mind. I probably would take half of my dogs from the shelter home. Alina Ivanova, animals' rights activist. We must not and have no right to take animals or any other living being's life. Life, in any form is sacred, and to encroach on it, me, as a Christian, I do not want to pronounce this word. Moreover, euthanasia is a voluntary way to end life. It can't relate to animals in any way. This is murder. Ekaterina Zubenko, volunteer. Everyone wants to live. A man living in a village, a man living in New York, a man in Tokyo. They all want to live. Everyone has an understanding of the value of life. We all cling to it, whatever it is. That's why it's rather strange for me to hear about this humane euthanasia. What is humane about it? That you impose your values on the life of another? Maybe he has different values. If Petya could speak, he would have defended this thesis even more convincingly. But Petya is a dog, and he can only support the volunteer's position with his love of life. Incredible, considering he's seriously ill. He has lupus erythematosus, an autoimmune disease that requires treatment with very aggressive drugs. If Petya was in another country, he would have already been put to sleep, because they have their own understanding of humanity, I would say. But we're in Russia. I actually thought for some time too that it's more humane to let this dog go, put him to sleep. But watching him now, the way he plays with toys, it somehow does not seem so bad for him to live. Those dogs who get to the shelter are treated, but there are still many unfortunate stray dogs on the streets of the city. And of course it is not enough to deal with the consequences. It is necessary to eliminate the reason behind stray animals appearing on our streets. Natalia Bondarenko, volunteer. The main problem is people who give their pets away. You see, this is the cycle of dogs in nature. For example, we find homes for 700 dogs, sometimes 900. But the same number, or even more, get abandoned. And it turns out that we cannot reduce them. We can't make these dogs happy. Galina Makarova, volunteer. You find a home for a dog, feel relieved and happy. Next day you come back and there is already a new dog sitting there. We never have an empty space because there is a catch. In Russia, we have a big problem with this, despite the successful European experience. For example, in the Netherlands, they applied a whole range of measures and in a couple of years solved the issue drastically and humanely. In Russia, volunteers and animal rights activists know all these measures off by heart and can only dream that they will be implemented in Russia. Natalia Bondarenko, volunteer. Article 245, cruelty to animals, does not work. Neither in Moscow nor in Russia do we have animal registration. There is no legal responsibility for the animal being just thrown away. And there are a lot of such things, plus the responsibility of people, thinking, the consciousness of people. It is not common for us to be responsible for an animal. Marina Karshirskaya, volunteer. Registration and accounting must be done, right? Now we have chipped animals, those who fly abroad. Sheltered animals, but they're not registered anywhere. If an animal escaped or was abandoned, it's very, very difficult to track down and find out who did it. The person who did this to the animal does not get fined or punished. There should be some kind of responsibility. There should also be an education program for children, taught in schools. How to be responsible for animals, how to behave towards them. Yana Ustyenka, volunteer. Take Germany, for example. If a dog goes missing there, you must report it to the police. If you don't do this and your dog is found, you'll get a fine, €1,000 for your dog hanging out on the streets. Yelena Ivanova, animals rights activist. Sterilization is the only humane way and method of solving the problem of stray animals. If on the territory of compact residence of animals in a short period of time, 70% of animals are sterilized, then the problem is solved in 3 to 4 years. We will end up bearing the financial burden and the most terrible, the moral and ethical burden, which dooms our children to cruelty and hopelessness. Lev Tolstoy said that a society that treats animals badly will always be poor and criminal. During the filming of the movie, life didn't stand still. The plot and stories changed, bring both good and bad news. But the best news came last. The government has been instructed to develop a reasonable algorithm for the actions of the executive and legislative branches, which will be capable of forming a responsible attitude towards animals in society, for which both volunteers and animal rights activists fight. The amendment should be developed by December 2021, which means that next year may become more happier for our smaller brothers, and our society, having received such a humane inoculation, will definitely become more civilized. But each of us can make the life of animals better now. Be responsible for your pets, take care of them, sterilize them. This will prevent the birth of new dogs and cats that tomorrow might become unwanted. Do not walk past an animal who is in trouble. Come to the shelters, help volunteers, join their ranks, make at least one animal happy. These volunteers are ordinary people just like you. The selfless love of a dog for a person knows no bounds. And this wonderful example can make the world a kinder, better place for everyone.